Hey, Robert, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we get to interview you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
My name's Robert New. I'm an author, teacher, academic, PhD candidate. I do all sorts of things.
Love it. I would love if you could tell us what your books are about.
Well, I've got I write in sort of two main genres. So the speculative fiction is where I suppose my novels tend to sort of reside in that sort of space, and detective fiction. So I've got some detective fiction series where called Colors of Death, where it's a short story anthologies, where each story has a color theme, and it usually relates to how the person died, like they turned blue as they die, all based on genuine science and things. So it's not like people turning blue is due to some random made up thing. It actually is due to real science. So I use a lot of science in my writing. Then the main one is so speculative fiction. So I've written a novel called Insight, which takes the reader on it's about a detective who uncovers an intelligence raising program, and as he works through that, he goes from being sort of a fish out of water in a big town to a big city to becoming a really good detective. But I don't cheat out on that. I don't sort of go, it's a magic pill that makes him more intelligent. It's an actual program he has to work through, which the reader gets to experience too. And then the most recent one is called Sovereign Assassin, and it's about an assassin who has sovereign immunity because she becomes queen of a country. And when you have that status, you can't be charged with any crime, including murder. So when she's caught assassinating someone, a unscrupulous TV producer comes to her and says, "Let's make a reality TV show as you prepare for your next kill." So that's what it does. So it's a very tongue-in-cheek, sarcastic, well, not sarcastic, satire, but it doesn't go through a lot of sort of philosophical issues around morality and martial art law and the like. So, yeah.
Love that. What inspired you to write your book?
Well, what inspires me in general is usually science, quirky philosophy, quirky sort of ideas. I tend to, like, when I come across something that I find curious or interesting, sort of think, that could go into a story, and sort of put that together and combine it, and hopefully then produce something that's worth reading out of it. In this case, it was a quote from a former president saying that they could stand in the middle of Sixth Avenue and shoot anyone and not lose any votes. And it was sort of like, well, how far could that be taken? And so I then took this sort of approach, like, what would it take for not only that to be tolerated, but also how could we actually then feel sympathy for such a character? And so, the protagonist in Sovereign Assassin is I keep glancing over to the side because I've got a copy of the book there. That's why I'm just looking at the cover. And so it's very much sort of inspired, like, well, let's see. It's a cautionary tale. It's like 1984 is satire, but it actually sets out how it could be. It's very much that kind of story where we shouldn't be wanting to support this person, but we kind of, there's lots of aspects to it that we kind of like in the story. So I take inspiration from everywhere. I read a lot of books about martial art history and law in it, which get referenced sort of in the story, because I've studied martial arts for 20 years. So I've done and used my background in that area to bring that to life. And I was doing a PhD. I'm getting exposed to all sorts of philosophical ideas, the way we know the world. And so that comes into it too.
Love that. When writing your book, who were you thinking of when it comes to who your book is for?
Well, originally, for this one, I was like, the main character is a 25-year-old. So it probably was sort of pitched with that kind of audience in mind. They say, like, you should write for particular, more for writing with children, but you should write in children. Your protagonist should be about 2 years above the age group you want to read the story. So this is probably, I suppose, a millennial, if you like, who is our main character, and so he's grown up in a social media world. So probably, yeah, but adults. Even though it could be tagged young adult because of the target of the main characters and sort of things around it. It is still it's adult readers because there's themes explored in there and pretty decent descriptions of some violence at times too, which probably make it not appropriate. Even though there's not really swearing and such, there's still quite some violence. So perhaps not pitched for teenagers, maybe adults. Adults would be good.
Love that. How long have you been writing, and what made you really sit down and start?
Well, I've been writing since I was a child. Like I've got in moving house a few times, you clear out stuff, and I found like an old, little scrapbook, almost not a scrapbook, but I found like stuff that I wrote when I was a kid. Like I wrote stories as a kid. I just remember when I was in year 7, so about the sort of 13-year-old range, because I'm not sure how that converts to American years. I remember we wrote a story for our English class. I did that. I got like the A for it. And yeah, humble brag. and then, but I felt like that story wasn't complete. And I remember I then like doubled the length of it and still handed it to the teacher for feedback. And that was, not for trying to get any extra. It was just, I wanted to tell a story. In year 10, I started writing a novel and I got 10,000 words into it. It was a total Robert Ludlum rip-off because he was who I was reading it at the time. And yeah, so writing is something that I've done. But in terms of then taking it seriously and taking it to the point where, okay, I want to try and get published, I want to do all that, probably since about 2013. So 2013 was when I badly self-published a novel. Like I made every self-publishing mistake you can make, from formatting through to publishing a novel that wasn't ready and all sorts of things. And that sort of, but the bug was well and truly in me at that point. And so then I wrote what I call my first real novel, where there was an actual plot and actual, things. And that was called Insight. That's the one where the detective goes from being naive and has the intelligence raising program. And so then, since then, I've written 3 children's books. They were written or co-authored by my children. So the first one was written with my son, and the last 2 have been written with my daughter, which has been really awesome to have that and produce a physical book that we can, have as a legacy and sort of thing that we've shared. But also because, like, particularly the second book, my daughter, both kids have been so inspired what they've done. They've started writing a second book, which has been really cool. Then 3 or 4 short story collections and 3 novels all up. So yeah, so just the second book I wrote with my daughter is about to come out. So by the time this goes to air, it will be out. And so that's my 10th book, if you like, that I'll have authored. And fingers crossed, also by the time this airs, my first audiobook will be out, which would be kind of exciting, which is for Sovereign Assassin. So that's being professionally produced. My publisher is helping, is getting that done, which is wonderful. So yeah, I mean, Sovereign Assassin was a book which when I wrote, I was able to pitch it to publishers and get it accepted, which was really cool. And so yeah.
Amazing. I would love if you're willing to share the name of the book that you and your daughter have coming out.
So it's called Lost in the World of Dragons. And so it's a story of an army man who gets their base is raided by some unknown animal. They go searching in the forest uses the wisdom that he's gleaned from Aboriginal elders who've helped him work out what's food. And then he gets knocked out, wakes up in a cave, and there are dragons staring at him. So he immediately hates the dragons and blames them for his situation and for the base being raided. But then it turns out that they actually saved him from what was actually chasing him, and can speak English because it's necessary. So they wind up helping him get back to his barracks. And so at the end, he realizes that they're actually his friends. And so there's a lesson at the end of the book, like a page that, like, what happened, what he did was called prejudice. And the authors, so Rachel and myself, Rachel, my daughter, who wrote it, hope that people learn what that is through the story, but also what the characters do in the stories. They introduce themselves to each other, and so we identify that as one of the first steps to breaking down prejudice, and as something that's a really good idea for people sort of to follow. And then we also have a paragraph in there around we went on it. The reason why we were inspired to include an acknowledgement of Indigenous culture was because we went to a talk with an Indigenous leader where he walked us through the bush and was pointing out all the ways that the Aboriginal people, the Wurundjeri people, have used that land, and like what trees were medicine, what animal did this, what berries could be eaten, and all that sort of stuff. And it was just the most amazing, wonderful experience. So we included nods to that in the story too. So so that one should be out. I think it comes out in November. So by the time this goes to air in 2024, should definitely be out.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. What is your schedule like when you are writing a book?
Well, it varies. So what I have found is that the busier I am, the more writing I get done. So I use writing as an escape. So the same way people use reading as an escape. I guess it's to break from the realities and the things I have on, the more I want to escape from it and procrastinate in other ways. And that's when, I really sort of get into writing. I don't have a set routine. I'm not like a Stephen King who, starts each morning, starts writing at 4 a.m., but starts with a slice of cheesecake, each morning. And that's his ritual. I don't have a particular sort of set thing. I usually have a coffee because coffee is awesome. And I tend to have the noise cancelling headphones on, and that really does help me zone in. And then I just sort of write. Typically, I'm a pantser. I don't set out massive plots to start. I start writing the story and sort of see where it goes. For Sovereign Assassin, which is like a 75,000 word novel, I had a chapter sort of outline, if you like, but that whole thing was probably about 300, 400 words, and was usually just here's this bit of martial art law that I want to use. I want to reference the Musashi's Book of Five Rings, or I want to mention like the art of war here, or I want to talk about this philosophical idea here, or bring in that. And so that's really all it was. It was like a series of like ideas I want included, separated into chapters. And from that, it just came. Sometimes it flows. Sometimes I start right from the start of a story and it just, writes from there. Other times I will, write a little bit, get stuck, but know what scene I want to get to later on. So I just start writing that scene rather than freezing. And get there. I give myself permission to write rubbish. I know that the first draft is not going to be good. So, the purpose of first draft is to get it done. You can edit words, not no words, and all those sort of wonderful affirmations. And so I will frequently just skip and then go through a bunch of edits to make it flow. And after about, at least half a dozen, if not 10, decent rounds of editing, then it might go to an editor and get a developmental edit. So I've got a really awesome editor for that, and then by the time it's published, it has a line edit and everything too.
Amazing. What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
Coffee. So yeah, probably should have hesitated a little bit longer before I answered that, but no, coffee is an essential. So yeah, it's like, in an ideal world, I have the dogs at my feet. I have 2 cocker spaniels, and yeah, they will typically be at my feet while I write, because they follow me everywhere anyway. And noise cancelling headphones, some decent music to listen to. Has to be typically something I'm very familiar with, because then I can tune it out, and then the rest of the world sort of disappears. And my laptop and comfy chair, and then I'm right. I don't have
Amazing.
to have any particular food, or I don't have to have any snacks or anything. I could just, yeah, once I've got that, I'm good.
Love it. Well, what is your favorite writing snack or drink?
Ooh. Coffee's the favorite drink. I mentioned it 3 times now, so maybe I'm coming across as a bit of a caffeine addict. Probably am. In terms of snack, don't particularly have one per se. I don't. As I say, I'm not. Yeah, not that particularly focused on food, because I find that actually distracts me from writing when it's eating, because I'm always reaching for the bowl of whatever it is, and that takes my hand away from the keyboard where I sort of write. But definitely I need headphones and music, and and it's interesting also then the choice of soundtrack and how that changes the style of what you write. So if I'm writing something particularly dark, I might switch up the music a little bit and go to one of the heavy metal bands that I like. If I'm writing something that's a bit more happy and joyous, then do something else.
Love that. What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
I really like. Well, I read a wide range of books. So nonfiction, fiction. I really like Ted Chiang's books. He's only really written a couple, but I really like his style of writing. My favorite author is Peter Hoag, who is best known for Miss Miller's Feeling for Snow. That was a book that was given to me by a teacher back when I was in high school, and then I read it. He wound up becoming my favorite author, and that my favorite book. And then 17 years later, I wound up working with that teacher and was able to sort of say, "Hey, remember that book you gave me? That really meant a lot to me." And it was cool because she'd actually chosen it very deliberately, turned out, and everything else. So I read a lot of nonfiction. Um, these days I'm getting into audiobooks, just because how I'm studying a PhD, and that really eats up your time for trying to read fiction. So listen to audiobooks, listen to a lot of science fiction, which is really good. And and say the nonfiction books. So because I'm always looking, I like ideas, and so I'm always looking for a new idea or a new way of sort of looking at the world. That's what inspires my writing. That's why I've studied widely and broadly across many subject areas and disciplines. And so, that typically I'm fairly eclectic in what I read. I'll go for anything. But so science fiction, speculative fiction, and nonfiction, probably my main genres.
Love that. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
Uh, so probably even just reading Peter Hoag was one, like his style. It is to include a lot of really interesting ideas and information and explore them, and not be afraid to disrupt the narrative with a digression about mathematics, for example, but still very much that digression into mathematics in Miss Miller's Filling for Snow is also very much giving you an insight into the character. So like if I can achieve that where I'm getting to explore really interesting ideas in an interesting way, but it's actually still enhancing the story and enhancing the character, that I really like trying to do. I mean, growing up as a teenager, I read a lot of Stephen King. Hence my references to him already. And so like I sort of liked his style. Having said that, I don't really write in the horror genre, but I suppose his discipline in terms of writing, I wish I had. But so there are quite a few authors that inspire me. Like in terms of non-fiction, I really like Simon Singh's books. He's written books around mathematics, so Fermat's last theorem or Fermat's last theorem. But his book The Big Bang is really interesting. It explores all that sort of science and related. But what I really like is how he goes into like when talking about a book about the history of a scientific area or field, he goes into the people and brings them to life as characters, if you like, in this story. And I really like that. I like those picking up those sort of quirky little bits. And that's what I'm also finding even in studying a PhD, where I'll be researching or using someone's theory, but then it turns out that person was actually a really awful person, but their idea was actually kind of interesting. So, they're a member of the Nazi party, they had multiple affairs and everything else, but then you get this quirky thing where actually the person he had the affair with was the one who gave us the expression, the banality of evil. And it's like, ooh, it's just random, but it sort of brings it to life that little bit more. And I kind of, I like that. I like, when you, authors are able to, bring in sort of that quirky bit of information, because that's what I like to do. I like to sort of go like, hey, did you know that there's a study that found this in my writing? Or, that if you do this, research suggests. I don't use that expression per se, but just I try to base what happens in stories on real psychology in particular, because my background's in psychology. I've studied it extensively. My PhD is in I'm applying psychological theory to leadership. So yeah.
That's amazing. What books did you grow up reading? Did you have an all-time favorite?
I don't know. I can't. The all-time favorite's Miss Miller's Feeling for Snow. That's the one I've read multiple times and been particularly sort of inspired by. But what I actually find now is, in terms of growing up, the books I've read to my kids are ones where they're classics that I enjoyed as a child, and I'm now reading them to my kid, and they're enjoying them. That kind of timeless quality is really awesome. But there was one that I really like. I've got two dogs. I love dogs. And there was one that I read with my kids, which is called That's the Way I Love You. And it's basically just the way a dog loves a person. And it's like, the child sort of going, yeah, that's the way I love you. And there's I love the way you show you care. And there's the dog, like, with its paw looking or concerned when they're injured, or, the way you do this, the way you do that. And it's just really cool. And I really like that as an all-time favorite children's book. In terms of more recent books, I suppose Ted Chiang's book Exhalation, I really liked. I didn't like necessarily every story in that collection, but there's some really interesting ideas that are explored in there, like the morality of the multiverse as an idea that gets explored and covered really well. I hate it when authors have a really good idea and it gets a paragraph. And so you're sort of like, no, take that further. That was really cool. Tell me more about that. And that's sort of what I really liked. So like I could think of one where there was a book where really interesting story, really and really boldly written by an Australian author, and in it they talk about like words as being a script, and that if you have the right combination of words you can trigger in a person, you can then control them. And like that was a really interesting idea that I thought needed a lot more elaboration, and really wanted more elaboration in that story. But it was sort of covered in a paragraph and not really so much. So like, yeah, that's why I really like Ted Chiang's book, Exhalation, which actually does go into the depth, and but really does explore, and interesting ideas, and does it well. So yeah.
Love that. On the other side of that, now as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors that if they come out with something, you automatically grab it?
Well, these days, so I tend to be reading a lot more nonfiction. So yeah, anything actually. There's a British mentalist, Darren Brown, and so anything he comes out with, I'll read. That was a particularly he because he's really exploring humanity and human behavior. That's a particular interest of mine. And so even though he's approaching it from a nonfiction background or a memoir sort of background, and his journey through things, anything that he brings out, yeah, automatic purchase. Pretty much, if Stephen Fry wrote another book on some ancient history, I would be right there. Love his Greek mythology series, so the heroes, mythos, and Troy. It would absolutely sort of be there. Particularly love his audiobook duration too, in general. Who else? There's a few that I read quite a lot of. So I really like the audiobooks for John Scalzi, which are read by Will Wheaton. Not everyone likes Will Wheaton's narration, but it works for me. So any of that. I really like Martha Wells' Murderbot series, and there's a new one coming out soon, which is, well, by the time this goes out, it'll be out, which is kind of exciting. So yeah, there's a whole bunch. Probably those guys.
Love that. What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
Uh, Find something you like, and go with it. But also don't feel like you have to necessarily read in a particular style or genre. People will like criticize people who read graphic novels, but graphic novels are great for getting people interested in reading, and actually their word use is actually really tends to be, they use more rare words compared to general writing, and so that they're actually really good things for people to read. So I look at my own children, for example, and my daughter loves graphic novels, and particularly the Wings of Fire series, because dragons, wolves, that's my daughter, and so but that's got her into reading. And so I mean, read what interests you. Don't feel you have to be restricted in genre, style, author. Find something that works. You may not like everything by an author, but find what you do like. As I say, don't feel like just because something might be tagged as young adult that you as an adult can't read it. Don't feel like, because I know lots of adults actually, because I'm a teacher, and so actually I work with and I'm also teaching at university, teaching the teachers coming through how to be better teachers. But some of those guys will be really into children's books, and like that's cool. Like, as long as you're reading, I mean, really, that's the main thing. Like, my message would be, who cares what you're reading as long as you read it? Same as like arguments over what belongs on a pizza or not. Who cares if you enjoy it? Yay! That's what's important.
Love that. On the other side of that, what would you tell someone just starting to write their own book?
Give yourself permission to write rubbish. Like that's really the main thing. Like, get it done. Get words on a page. You can edit words on a page. The biggest issue for people is usually starting. So if you don't know, same thing I tell students when they're writing essays. If you don't know, just set a timer 3 minutes, write down everything you want to, instead of being everything you know about a topic for an essay. 3 minutes, write down everything you want to happen in the story that you can think of right now. Okay, the timer really helps in terms of motivation and getting there. Like, I've got 3 minutes to get everything down, and you find in that time you'll write 150, 200 words, and you'll get, which is actually really surprising, but that's about what people typically type. And so then you wind up with, you've got words on a page, you've got ideas down. Automatically, your brain will start sort of going, no, well, that doesn't fit down there. That's going to happen first. And you start sort of reordering. That's like, great. You've got something, you've got to start, and take it from there. Break the ice is the short version. And say it's editing that makes writing good. You're not going to finish writing a draft and go send, or send off to publisher or publish. You're going to edit it and edit it and edit it, so that the quality is there. And yeah, so but say the purpose of the first draft is to get it written. Go for it.
Love that. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
I have a phobia for jewelry. um, I have no idea where it came from. There were no bad experiences or anything. I don't even know how there could be, but yeah, no, it's just a totally bizarre, weird thing. I don't know where it came from. It just freaks me out, and particularly like dangly earrings or necklaces, just and to the point where I was teaching at a school, and somehow, like, a student had lost a necklace and someone had put it on the front bench, like, for the students to claim. I couldn't teach while it was there. I had to cover it with a sheet of paper because I couldn't bring myself to touch it, and then I could sort of teach the lesson. And like, if I have to, I can force myself to do it, to pick something up or move it. But yeah, and it's totally irrational. That's why it's a genuine phobia. It's just, there is no logic to it. There's nothing. It just, for some reason, freaks me. So that's kind of something people tend to find surprising. Another thing might be that I have spent more than half my life since leaving high school studying at university. So the PhD is my 7th degree at uni. So yeah, I'm a serial student, and I can't help myself. Like, because I like exploring ideas and learning new things, and so that's also, then I also explore those ideas and things in my writing. But yeah, so every so often I'll do something, finish the course, and then be satisfied for a year or two, and then it's like, I'm ready again.
Love that. That's super amazing. Is there anything you would like to say or add?
I can't think of anything so much. Jeez, I'm looking at my cats come up beside me. But yeah, 2 dogs and a cat. Because you've got a few dogs, I think I saw on your profile.
Yes, we have 3.
3. What sort are yours?
We have a Siberian Husky,
Beautiful, beautiful.
Siberian Malamute mix, and then a Lab mix.
My daughter would be in heaven. Yeah, no. So in terms of things to add, I suppose just enjoy reading, and then go for it. Yeah.
Love it. Where's the best place for readers to find your book? I know some readers love signed copies. Is that an option?
Yep.
And best place to connect with you?
So best place to connect with me is probably on my author page on Facebook, or through my website, which is just robertsnew.com. Amazon, also have an author profile there, with which is probably another sort of main area, because that gets feeds from my website. Otherwise, Twitter, or X, whatever it's called these days. I'm basically on all the socials now. So I'm on Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram. Just look me up.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful we got to interview you. We'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes. That way everyone can find you. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.